Hello there. How are you? It's 9 o'clock on a Tuesday night, April 5th. I haven't done a count of, what the best, you know, how many live streams in a row I'm going to do on this channel because I don't know that I'm going to do it every night. I don't know that I'm going to do it all the time. I think I'll just kind of wait to see how things go. As you know, right now there's not that many people around, so I don't get the opportunity to stay on late. I don't get that pull from the people to to keep going. I just have to do it myself. And I'm motivated enough to do it. It's hot in the house. I've got lights shining on me. There's probably sweat on my forehead. I apologize for that. Um, but how are you? I say, how are you? This could be a year from now. So I don't remember if I told you it's the 5th of April, 2022. And last night we've had a couple of good shows. Last night the show I thought was really a really good experiment to talk about ethics in the workforce, both on the employee side and the employer's side, and how it seems to be an obvious conflict with I guess what I would call the human spirit. And then we did that show a couple nights back about the Twitter thread about Amazon, and I thought that was a pretty good show too. So I'm feeling pretty good about things. I don't have everything set as far as like how long it takes me to study for a show or anything like that, and I don't have any real user assistance. So like I can't really rely on that for like showtime, and so that's where I'm at. Let's do something that I've been trying to work on a little bit more in my own um, production of the show, and that's let's talk about some of the things that let's preview some of the things we're going to talk about. So one of the things we're going to talk about tonight is companies that might hide behind a facade and actually be bad companies, but they pretend to be virtuous, and they maybe get away with it. Another thing we're going to talk about is the company better.com. I don't know if you've heard of them for what they are or if you've heard of them for what they've done. It'd be kind of interesting to talk about that. Warren Buffett, who is an old man, who has been a billionaire as long as I've been alive, and who I don't know as I get older, if I care as much of what he has to say, but he talks about what do you look for in a valuable employer? What would you, who would you hire? And then another thing we might look at is what if your most valuable employee leaves your organization? So that's one of the things that I'm insecure about in my own organization, and that's if I bring someone on and I spend months and months and months and maybe years training this person to do exactly what I'm intending and then to excel in that position. So it's not enough to just know what to do. You've got to you got to take possession of it and run with that job in that position. And so, what if that person just ups and leaves? Like, what do you do? And then so that was something. And then I wanted to get into some things that maybe you're not the most friendly. We're going to talk about a stabbing in the workforce. We're going to talk about perhaps employee harassment, contributing to the death of employees. And we're going to just talk about kind of some dangerous things that maybe you don't think are that dangerous, but they turn out to be pretty dangerous. So I know it'll be a full show. I have no doubt we're going to go. For any of you out there that are, thinking about subscribing, I would hope that you do so. I'd like to grow this thing into something real. I'm going to try and explain it to you like this. I believe the person first. And tonight at dinner, I got put into a bad position because of my militance for like what I believe is people first. Someone at the dinner table said something about someone else and like what is their position, like what do they do for a living? And I almost, because I'm a little bit because I'm working through the show, I just asked, heavily, like, what does that have to do with the person? what does that have to do with we're all people first, and what does your job say about you? It said, I reject the ideology. When I hear someone's working for a Fortune 500 corporation, I don't get all excited, and I don't get the warm and fuzzies like some people do. Some of these companies are very, very evil places. Not all of them, okay, and the people are definitely not all evil, but man, there's a lot of evil. There's a lot of evil, and so I just have to do a better job of, when I'm talking to family and friends, not to jump into I guess I would say the internet fray that I've created myself, which is that, we're people first and we're our professions second. It's the first thing I've come up with in my new show. And sure, that's where I'm at. And so what I wanted to do is let's just get into it tonight. I mean, I'm 6 minutes in, and let's just see what you think about some of this stuff, and feel free to contribute or not, just watch, but I'm going to get to it. And so here we go. Now you have to forgive me because I am going right here. Now let's preface this. Let me check real quick just to make sure we're good. Let's preface this by saying, look, these are accusations of employment. We don't know that this is true, but it is a story, and it's out of Chicago. And the idea is that there was a hotel that was using its virtuousness as a shield to do bad things to their employees. And so I wanted to go through this with you, this story. I thought it was kind of interesting. And then we'll just pause along the way and see how it goes. So it says, I'm going to close this real quick. It says, former employee sues Ace Hotel, alleging defamation and corporate negligence. The lawsuit claims that the chain's ethos of diversity and inclusion is a facade that hides abusive practices towards its workers. Now, that's a heavy charge, and let's remember that this is an allegation. Perhaps the best offense when suing a corporation is to get ahead of the story, is to have explosive allegations having the effect of maybe tainting the potential jury pool ahead of time, or at least damaging the company enough in the initial stages that they might perhaps want to settle or something of that nature. So, but I wanted to go through this because I believe that many corporations use an ethos of diversity and inclusion, tolerance, any number of buzzwords in the corporate world to hide the fact that they're terrible people, and they abuse their workers, and they don't care about the clients. They don't care about the general public. They're in business only to make a profit, no matter how that goes. And no amount of training is gonna change that. It says, when Claire Henry began working as the marketing and programming director at the Ace Hotel in Chicago, shortly after it opened in Fulton Market in the fall of 2017, she was excited by the possibility of creating a space where all sorts of people could come together to appreciate music, art, and food. Now, how many people do you know that are initially excited about the job, the position that they take? Perhaps they've been searching for employment for years. Perhaps they've wanted a career change in midlife, and now they've got this opportunity that they had not had previous, and they're excited about it. And how happy are you just knowing that person? And how happy are you for that person because they found something that they're excited about, that they're happy about? Life-changing, possibly. What if the pay is different? What if the benefits are different, and in a positive way? It says, to Henry, who was fresh out of grad school, it felt like a grand experiment, and she immediately began reaching out to artists and DJs to schedule a full slate of parties, talks, and exhibits. So this was a place that, the idea was everybody comes and hangs out and maybe buys some things and all, it makes sense. And not as a criticism, but was the person that they were looking to hire supposed to be young? I mean, you can't discriminate against age, but there's got to be something that says we need a young person who's energetic and has some idea of what people might want to come and see at our space. So now, 4.5 years later, the Ace has left town. So the hotel chain has left. And Henry, who says she was asked to leave her job in September 2020, is suing the hotel chain for defamation of character, corporate negligence, and infliction of emotional distress. The Ace's ethos of diversity and inclusion was just a facade, and behind the scenes, the chain's management was guilty of mistreating and even abusing its workers, specifically its workers who are Black, Indigenous, and people of color. Her lawsuit argues with specific examples gleaned from social media claims. Instead of taking responsibility for its culture, the lawsuit argues the Ace used employees like Henry, who is white, as scapegoats. Now, we didn't know the race of Henry, Claire Henry. It has now been told to us in the second paragraph. And, what do you think about using social media as proof of some sort of a bad situation? Now, let me just put this out there, and I don't think it's controversial, but I just think that it's important to at least talk about it. Look, when a company is flush with cash, they have the ability to pay their employees or give their employees benefits that others cannot. When a company is struggling financially, they have to cut. They have to cut just to stay in business, for the most part. Now, I've noticed in my own industry, real estate companies are being floated by Wall Street executives, and so they're able to lose money, millions and millions of dollars quarterly, in the hopes that they'll pick up market share at some point. So that's a calculated bet. But in this particular case, is it possible that the hotel chain was leaving Chicago due to fierce competition or some other reason, and that they were no longer able to abide by their extravagant or extra benefits for working for the hotel? Now, I don't know. But what I'm saying is when you talk about Google and they talk about how great the Google campus is and how you can sleep in tree houses and that you can get food delivered to you whenever you want to, and you can sleep there if you want, and all this wonderful stuff, that's because they have a lot of cash. I'm not offering that here at Deerwood Realty. Like, there's not one thing that they can offer their employees that I can, other than, hey, if you come work here, I'll treat you as best I can, as best as the money that I have allows. That's where I'm at. So just understand that when a company promises something, that promise is only as good as the company is solvent. Ace hires young, enthusiastic, excited people who really need the brand on their resume, Henry says. They need the connection, and they're not in a position to fight. It feels like bullshit that these people are left hurt and damaged by a company that propped themselves up on the idea of community and connectedness and inclusivity. I got to a point, as so many employees who have made the complaints have done, where you either stop talking about it or you realize that this is how they continue to get away with this behavior. That is why, she says, there are so many other complaints besides her own in the filing. Okay, so first off, Ace hires young, enthusiastic, excited people who really need the brand on their resume. Just as a point of order, I don't know anything about Ace Hotels. I don't know what having Ace Hotels on my resume would help me do in the future. I really don't. And as far as they need the connection and they're not in a position to fight, it feels like bullshit that these people are left hurt and damaged by a company that dropped themselves up on the idea of community and correctness and inclusivity. I don't know what that means. And so, like the last sentence, that is why she says there are so many other complaints besides her own in the filing. I don't know if these are like unnecessary to the lawsuit. I don't know. Okay, it says General Counsel Miriam Solomon wrote in an email to Eater, which is the magazine that we're reading from, that the Ace was unable to comment on ongoing litigation. And so that's another thing. A a company is oftentimes hamstrung to defend itself when allegations and lawsuits appear, because they would prefer to settle this in a trial setting. I mean, they are being sued, so I get that. It must be terribly frustrating to attempt to fight charges of these types without being able to really comment on it. It says during the first year of Henry's tenure at the ACE, everything seemed to be going well. Henry said she received praise for her work from ACE's management and members of the community. She sometimes felt overworked, underpaid, and undersupported. Her starting salary was $63,000, and she was expected to manage not only the hotel's slate of programming between 3 and 10 events a week, but also its branding in Chicago, with the assistance of only one other person, a social media manager. Still, she also felt like she was doing important work, partnering with interesting people, including singer-songwriter Zola Jesus, rapper Anderson .Paak, and the late artist and designer Virgil Abloh. The hotel also hosted a panel event with Eater Chicago back in 2019. So did this woman, I don't know when she started working there, the fall of 2017, and she left in 2020, has access to this magazine. And they've posted that in the article, and I think that's fair. Now, I don't know what a starting salary of $63,000 gets you in Chicago, but I do understand that she sometimes felt overworked, underpaid, and undersupported. I feel overworked, underpaid. I can only support myself, so I don't know that these feelings are any different than anyone else. So, Henry says that she was always hyper aware of her race as she built the hotel's schedule of programs. She wanted to make sure that ACE was a place where all Chicagoans would feel comfortable. I did not want to do programming that was reflective of just my perspective and who I was. She worked with DJ bookers to hire DJs to play a variety of music. She hoped that by hosting regular dance party nights, both they and Way Down would develop a following. Way Down was the first rooftop bar in Fulton Market, then a slightly out of the way industrial area, and part of Henry's job was helping it find its place in Chicago. So she says she was always hyper aware of her race as she built the hotel's schedule of programs. Her work did not go unnoticed as Ace Hotel helped fill a gap in the limited number of nightlife options for Black millennials, thanks to a host of creatives and thoughtful staffers who centered our needs, wrote The Tribe, a website that describes itself as reshaping the narrative of Black Chicago and giving ownership back to the people. The Tribe specifically singled out Way Down, which was later named Little Wild, in its article. Okay. So, apparently she's done a good job of bringing different people in. Now, I don't know if that's her job. Let's go into her job up here. She was excited by the possibility of creating a space where all sorts of people could come together to appreciate music, art, and food. So I don't know. We don't know. I mean, she was the marketing and programming director, but we don't know what her job function was. Was it to start these parties and this stuff? I mean, I don't know. Henry's official title at ACE was cultural engineer, one she and her counterparts across the chain disliked. It made them sound like they were engineering or manipulating culture. It didn't quite specify their place in the management hierarchy. They asked upper management for a better title that more accurately described the work they actually did. Now, here we go. Managing the hotel's brand and cultural programming, not determining what the culture of the hotel was to be. But Henry says in the lawsuit, their requests were ignored. Okay, so cultural engineer. Like everyone gets bullshit titles these days. And then it made them sound like they were engineering or manipulating culture, and it didn't quite specify their case. Now, she says that she's hyper aware that she was white, and she is it sounded like they were engineering or manipulating culture. Now, I don't think race and culture are a good mix as far as like I'm uncomfortable in that sphere. Um, I don't know. What was the culture that Ace wanted? That's the question. In late 2018, the Ace Chicago hired a new general manager, Jesse Bowles, who wanted to revamp aspects of the hotel that he felt were faltering. One of those was Way Down. Bowles and his managers at Ace's corporate headquarters felt the bar had too much of a club atmosphere. Henry says they envisioned it as something more like a cocktail bar. In mid 2019, they drew up a list of music that they no longer wanted played there. This included trap music, a popular hip-hop subgenre that features intense instrumentals characterized by sharply accented hi-hats and rumbling sub-bass, and raps about street life. I think that's in talking about trap music. The music was one of the main draws for the young black crowd who came to the venue to dance. The Aces list of music to be cut also included country pop. Interesting. This would have been a fascinating place with these different groups of people being catered to. Henry told management that she thought this decision would be dangerous and would create racial tension within the staff and with the public. But she said they ignored her. Instead, they left it to Henry to break the news to the staff, who assumed that the decision had been hers and that it was racially motivated. Now, first in the article, she's just working with a social media manager, and now she's talking to the entire staff about a decision and that they feel was that she was concerned they would feel it was racially motivated. Neither of these things, she says, was true. She asked Ace's management to clarify who had made the decision, but she says in the lawsuit they ignored her request, and the staff continued to believe that Henry wanted to discourage black people from coming to Way Down. Henry wanted. So she's saying that she was the messenger and she was unfairly targeted as the messenger. When customers complained about the removal of trap music on social media and in person, the Ace didn't respond. According to the lawsuit, the bad feelings festered and were increasingly directed towards Henry. Okay, so let's just stop for one moment. When customers complained about the removal of trap music on social media and in person, the Ace didn't respond, according to the lawsuit now. So Henry and the social media manager decided not to reply to the accusations, which seem to be true, that they're no longer supporting trap music. Okay. And she feels upset about that. In May of 2020, after George Floyd was murdered by Derek Chauvin, a Minneapolis police officer, the frustration again among I don't think, it's black, indigenous, I don't know what the P stands for, people of color, workers boiled over. While other companies across the country were openly declaring their support for the Black Lives Matter movement in the form of public statements and donations, it took nearly a week for the hotel chain to post a message on its corporate Instagram account that vowed to take a hard look inward to identify racism and inequality with our own house. Well, I mean, that's their right as a corporation. I mean, have you ever heard of the word pandering? How is Black Lives Matter doing with these charges in 2022? It's not going well. Ace employees from across, I mean, the idea is noble, don't get me wrong, but I mean, just the way it played out is seemly. I don't know the word I'm looking for. Anyway, Ace employees from across the chain responded to the post with a litany of complaints and anecdotes about racism within the hotel's management, which were cited in Henry's lawsuit. So black workers claimed they had been harassed and punished for behavior for which their white colleagues were praised. An unnamed former manager of the Ace Chicago's restaurant, City Mouse, was quoted in the lawsuit as saying they had specifically been told by upper management not to hire black, indigenous, people of color workers. Now, I don't understand how you can have an unnamed former manager of the restaurant, okay, when, like, don't you have to know who the manager was in order to substantiate the claim? And that's what I'm saying. So there is the law, and then there is, like, because you are painted with a brush, that makes it so. And I don't find that to be the best way to go about things. So according to the lawsuit, Henry and her fellow so-called cultural engineers felt that given their role, which required plenty of interaction with both the hotel staff and the community, they were best suited to report to upper management on the general mood, both inside the hotel and out. Instead, Bowles held a meeting with the staff at Way Down, to which Henry was not invited. Well, that would be the writings on the wall for Henry. She's out. I'm not, I mean, it just seems to be the way it is based on everything I know about organizations, which is not much. But anyway, the following day, according to the lawsuit, Bowles sent an email to the staff acknowledging that many systems and policies designed to address employee issues have an inherent bias towards existing structures, and as a result, do not do enough to support vulnerable groups, and vowing to do better. In response, an Ace Chicago bartender sent an email to all Ace employees worldwide. It included a Google Doc created by Way Down staff that claimed that Henry had advocated for the removal of trap music, and also included a list of demands that called for reform of the cultural engineering department and for current head at Ace Hotel Chicago, Claire Henry, to be terminated. Wow. So Henry is saying, you fired me and I was the wrong person to fire. It should be Bowles. It should be anyone but me. That's what she's saying. That's the way it looks, because she's being painted as the person that had advocated for removal of trap music. So that's fascinating. So in an Instagram post at the end of July, Ace said it was listening and taking action, including instituting implicit bias training, salary reviews, listening circles, and investigation of all allegations. Now, look, I think that if there's an allegation, you should investigate it. And if it's credible, you should try to make changes based on that. All within the context, though, of this is a corporation designed to make money. So that should be number one. When you take, like, let me try to do it in a way, and it might be ham-handed, but let's just say you manage an art museum, okay? Okay, so your job is to make sure that people walk through the art museum and they're happy and they're spending money and they're just going about having a good time. Okay, that's your number one priority. Now, number 5 or number 6 might be, hey, there's some allegations that things are a little bit off. We need to look into that, okay? But let's just say that someone has alleged that someone on the staff is a person that eats meat, and it violates the conscience of the employee that this other employee is eating meat, and sometimes they bring the meat to the job. Okay. Now, it isn't the company's job to solve that problem. It just isn't part of the business model to sit there and deal with people that just have ideas that aren't related to the forwarding of the cause of creating an environment in the art museum that customers want to walk through. And I say customers, I mean, people. That's what I've seen as the biggest problem with today's employment culture. Is it's not about profit. It's not about anything other than odd whims characterized by allegations. It's very, very strange. Okay. So, one of the first of those investigations was of Henry, specifically her role in the removal of trap music. The Aces CEO, Brad Wilson, had already announced in an email to the entire organization that Henry would be investigated for inappropriate bias and racism, and if she was found guilty, she would be fired. The mob says, "Bring me your head on a platter," and the boss says, "No problem." Now, a couple of things. Company investigations, to me, are not the same as legal investigations. Okay? It's just not. They're ham-handed. Again, the company's main role is not of that as an investigative unit. Its main role is to produce a profit for the shareholders or the owners or whoever is involved. That's their main number one job. Investigating, okay, is not. I'm just trying to be fair to everybody here, if I can be. So, and when you say to me, when you say that we're going to investigate this specific person, and if this specific person is found guilty, then we will fire this specific person. It's almost like it's baked in. So anyway, in July, Henry was interviewed by an outside investigator. Okay. We don't know the credentials of the outside investigator, but I feel like that's good. Unless, of course, it's already baked in and the investigator's there just to, help with the removal. And in August, she says she was told by the investigator and the ACE's head of HR that they found that her behavior had not been racist or biased. Well, that's a twist, isn't it? Henry and later her lawyer, Tamara Holder, asked the ACE to send a message to all employees clearing her name. Instead, in September, the hotel handed her a separation agreement, ostensibly because of reduction in workforce, and offered her a payment of $3,930.82 in exchange for waiving all claims against the company. The agreement arrived just as Henry was about to go on furlough, so she was never given a chance to explain her departure to her coworkers. Now, to go on furlough, I'm guessing that this is during the time of COVID. And I'm also guessing that the hotel wasn't doing well. And I don't know now. I don't know what the situation now. I'm just talking about in Chicago. Okay. They needed to say, we need to fix that. They needed to say to the employees, look, we're sorry that Claire looks this way to you. This is what she's done. Let's have a conversation about the trap music issue, because that's what a family and community does. It doesn't sound like that's the way it went. Let me just say, let's have a conversation about something. People are just hurling allegations at this woman. For Henry, what happened to her is just one example of the way she says the ACE has mistreated other employees. It's not just one employee who's voicing concerns and having issues, she says. This is a larger problem in the way this company treats their employees and how they want you to feel part of a tight-knit, close community and celebrate art and diversity and inclusion. But when they were faced with a large culture and social upheaval, they failed to rise to the occasion. I don't think that's up to her. No offense. I feel like it's management's job to do whatever they think is necessary to move down the path of keeping their restaurants and their hotel afloat. I mean, it's just me. Henry is asking for $50,000 in damages, less than the equivalent of what she earned each year working at the ACE. She's been able to continue working in the arts and interior design, in fact, in a far less public role. But both she and Holder feel it's important that the ACE should answer to her accusations and explain the discrepancies between its rhetoric of inclusion and the way it actually treated its employees, and why no one responded to Henry's many requests to officially clear her name. Holder filed the lawsuit on January 21st. The ACE has yet to respond. That's not exactly true. They did respond. They said they're not going to respond. That was their response. Now let's go through the last paragraph here, and I just want to check if anybody's in the chat. I didn't want to forget anybody, but if this woman feels that she's been wronged, and I mean, maybe it's fair. I don't know the exact situation. I'm just reading the article. She feels it's important that the ACE should answer to her accusations and explain the discrepancies between its rhetoric of inclusion and the way it actually treated its employees, and why no one responded to Henry's many requests to officially clear her name. So what I would go with on this one is the way it actually treated its employees. Is she generally talking about herself, how she was treated within the organization? Or is she talking about other employees, which, to be honest with you, I think every organization has employees that complain. Like, it's kind of one of the downsides of being in a large company. Now, as far as answering to her accusations, what is the accusation? The accusation is that they used their diversity and tolerance mantle to blunt any sort of charges that they were actively being negative to this group. And it says why no one responded to Henry's many requests to officially declare. Well, if they're going out of business or if they're leaving this market, they don't care. They don't. What good does that do? And so, this is where I'm at. Very fascinating article. It speaks to what should companies do in these situations, and did they do the wrong thing? Did they do the right thing? I'm not talking about from a legal perspective. I'm just talking from a person perspective. This woman feels harmed. They offered to give her 3,000. Well, let's just say 4,000. Let's round it up. She wants 50. But it sounds like she wants more than the 50. She wants some sort of apology. Something like, hey, we know you did a good job here. We know that you weren't the one that was racist. We're sorry. Now, will that solve the problem? No, because admission of guilt would probably trigger them to have to pay the money, and I don't think they want to pay the money. But anyway, it's not a good thing, and I feel bad for this woman. I feel bad for the hotel. I feel bad for the patrons of this place who feel that they were treated improperly. No winners here. Is that fair? Okay, let's move to the next article. Let me just, again, check because I don't want to be missing people in my space. So here we go. Better.com employees learn of mass layoffs when severance checks arrives early. Now, let me just say this. Better CEO, his name is Vishal Garg, and I remember it because they're in the industry in which I work. They're in mortgages. They provide leads to agents if they are part of the setup. I don't particularly have any use for this company. I'm not affiliated with them anyway. I don't wish their demise. But it's a pretty slimy company, and it's run by Wall Street in the back. They're financing the whole thing. But I don't know if I did read the title, but let me go again. Better.com employees learn of mass layoffs when severance checks arrive early. Oh, my God. Can you imagine? Like, say you get paid you get 2 pay periods a month, and all of a sudden you notice this huge amount of money in your account that wasn't there before, and you're like, oh, sweet, I got a bonus. Yeah. And then you find out. Let's get going through the article. I think Better.com has a problem. I think the name Better.com isn't the right one for this company. And I don't mean that to be negative, but maybe Terrible.com or Horrid.com. But Better.com, the brand name seems to indicate like you're doing better than someone else. Like things are better if you use them than others. And it doesn't seem like it's better for the employees in any way. The company that made headlines last year when it laid off 900 people during a Zoom call is at the center of another human resources debacle. Now, I'm going to just paraphrase what happened on that Zoom call. So the CEO says, hey, if you're on this call, you're fired. Pack up your shit and leave. Now, he doesn't say it that way, but that's what he meant. Okay. And then there's these internal channels that they can chat about. And so someone brought up in one of the chats, like, hey man, you kind of got rid of a bunch of employees and you're kind of a jerk. I mean, it wasn't very nice. This was after they had secured a bunch of funding from Wall Street again. So it's like, oh, we got to fire all these people so we can get all this money. It was very, very bad. And then he said the people that we fired, they were just stealing from the company. They were all terrible employees. They weren't working very hard. They weren't doing a good job, and we're better off now that they've left. Now, no one on the outside of this organization has any proof of whether or not he was telling the truth or not. Maybe these people weren't terrible employees, but whatever it is, as the CEO, I think you expect better. Online mortgage lender Better.com told media outlets on Tuesday that the company will be laying off about a third of its employees. The mass layoffs will include roughly 3,000 employees in the United States and India. Yet again, the way the company notified its workers is causing criticism. However, some employees said a notification popped up in the human resources app Workday, informing them that they had received a severance check before the company even reached out to inform them, according to the report. Better.com was apparently planning to announce the layoffs on Wednesday, but the severance pay slips were posted too early. One employee said there was no communication from the company prior to the text, no email, no call, no nothing. And so Better.com is paying the laid off employees 60 to 80 days severance, according to the New York Times. So let me try to put this in a way that I can understand it. And that is, you're being fired. Here's your severance. But the people that worked there felt that they deserved an indication, a confession, some sort of, something that said, hey, you're being let go. And then maybe some of them would like to know, like, why am I being let go? Am I also, a criminal stealing from the company as you accused others? I'm trying to understand, like, at the end of the day, you're not going to be working there. And maybe that's a good thing for you, because this company has laid off now 3,900, which is my math, 3,900 people in the past year. It doesn't sound like a strong organization to work for. Now, I don't know what the turnover is in a normal organization, so maybe I'm wrong, but it says, in December, Better.com Vishal Garg announced he was laying off hundreds of employees during a 3-minute video on Zoom. If you're on this call, you're part of the unlucky group that's being laid off, he said in the video. Your employment here is terminated effective immediately. Garg, who founded the company in 2014, later apologized. I realize that the way I communicated this news made a difficult situation worse. I am deeply sorry, and I'm committed to learning from this situation and doing more to be the leader that you expect me to be. Well, this didn't make it look good. I do remember he went on a break, a pause, and that he said he was working with a coach and that he was going to come back stronger than ever. This is an indication that there was a slip up in that. Here's my thinking. If you have an opportunity to use a company, say they're the same, say they're two internet mortgage companies, and one in the past year has gotten nothing but negative press. Another you haven't heard much about. Which one are you using? If you could only use those two, they're shooting themselves in the foot pretty hard. Pretty hard. Now, you could say, John, the people that use these services have no idea about these things that you're bringing up. They wouldn't know. It wouldn't hurt them at all. That may be true. That may be true. I don't want you to think that I'm all knowing. I'm not all knowing. And in fact, the main reason, again, for my channel is to try and just work through things, to get a better understanding of things, because employment seems ridiculous in the United States. Like, it just seems ridiculous. And you say, well, John, your job it's not ridiculous. And to that, I would say, I literally drive around showing people. Right now, I'm showing buyers houses where there are 30 other offers on the house. And I show houses for 6 months, right? Many, many offers. And then the buyers get sad and they leave the buying space at this time. And so all the time that I've spent writing offers, all the time I've spent driving around showing properties, all the time I've spent scheduling showings, all for nothing. All for nothing. That's pretty stupid. So don't kid yourself. Don't kid yourself. I don't think that I'm necessarily doing something that isn't silly like everyone else. I don't know. So that's the Better.com article. Let's move on. Here's one I thought was interesting. I didn't actually read this. I don't know how it actually got there, but here's from Inc. magazine: How to instantly spot a great employee according to Warren Buffett. When assessing candidates for open positions, Buffett says to look for this key trait. Now, let me say a couple things. One, Warren Buffett is an older gentleman, not for an age discrimination situation, but Warren he's not playing in the same pool that I am. Nothing about Warren Buffett is anything remotely close to the way I live my life. Okay. Now, why do we listen to Warren Buffett over, say, me? Well, he has credibility. And what is that credibility? It's money. He has a lot of money. I do not have a lot of money. Therefore, I am not as well thought of as the great Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett could say the sky is red, and we'd all have to sit around and think about it for a while and figure out, you know what, maybe it's not red, but maybe there's a tinge of red within the sky. That's how much cachet, that's how much street cred Warren Buffett has. And he's been wrong in the past, okay? There was a time I read the shareholder letters. He said he was never selling ABC, and yet they did. I do believe he's taken up positions in airlines a few times, and it's not gone real well. So don't think that because this man is a billionaire that, you know, don't think that he has a lock on what you should think and what you should do in your life. If you're trying to act like Warren Buffett, that's the worst situation you can be in, because you're not being true to yourself. Okay? That's what I think. Does it make me a bad person? I don't know. Let's get into the article. It says Warren Buffett, chairman and CEO of Berkshire Hathaway, is no stranger to good leadership advice. One of Buffett's highest measures of success is his reputation, as we discussed. Reputation is an invaluable asset that he says should be guarded every day. Now, let's talk about this in the context of a story I did for my Deerwood Realty live stream. The former head of PIMCO, Bill Gross, he said in his lawsuit where he was being sued by his neighbor, he said that his reputation had been tarnished and he had been trying to just go away, essentially just kind of fade off into the sunset. And these charges that he's a very terrible neighbor aren't helping him achieve that quietness that he so craves and desires at his age. It says, what's at the core of maintaining a great reputation? Not risking your integrity. After all, business is full of challenging and risky decisions. So when arriving at the crossroads of which path to take, walking the talk of integrity is your best choice. Now, man, I'm not going to take shots at Warren Buffett and his integrity, but I would offer that perhaps some of the things written about him might be hyperbole. Anyway, elevating this conversation to hiring the right people, integrity should be non-negotiable when assessing jobs candidates for the right positions. Buffett knows this too well. He's quoted everywhere with this timeless piece of advice. We look for three things when we hire people. We look for intelligence, we look for initiative or energy, and we look for integrity. And if they don't have the latter, the first two will kill you. Because if you're going to get someone without integrity, you want them lazy and dumb. Now listen, Warren Buffett did write something in one of his shareholder letters that was absolutely one of the most devastating takedowns of corporate leadership I've ever read. And he said that corporate executives have stole more money with a pen than a sword, essentially. That they are the best thieves in the world, essentially. And man, I hate to say this, but I agree. I agree with that 100%. There's a lot of financial shenanigans that have gone on in the United States for a long time. And I've watched Buffett invest at times and say, like, don't you realize how crooked this industry is that you're playing in? He says integrity weighs the heaviest. Buffett is not denying the importance of IQ when bringing in smart, innovative knowledge workers to solve your company's biggest problems. But I've been on the receiving end of hiring brilliant, charismatic, and creative geniuses only to watch them destroy morale and company culture with an arsenal of dishonesty, deception, and narcissism. If you're on the fence, here are 3 unquestionable reasons why you should hire people on integrity, even above intelligence, experience, or rock star technical aptitude. Now, I don't know. You guys have seen me do live streams for what, 4 days, maybe 5? I don't know if I come across as having the most integrity. I have certain beliefs that I will not compromise on, and it has caused me to be in this position. That is owning my own brokerage, owning my own real estate brokerage. And that is because I just felt like I couldn't have my integrity within a large corporate setting. It says they are truth tellers. A person who speaks their truth with candor makes it very attractive to those seeking honest brands and places of employment. And having an orientation toward the truth also makes it easier for people to connect with one another, embrace change, and reject wrongdoing and get real results. They follow through on their word. People with walking the talk of integrity follow through on their commitments and deliver on their promises. They also allow room for mistakes and failure. They're human after all, but they hold themselves accountable to a high standard absent of outside influences. I can tell you with great satisfaction that if you hear something from me, if I say I will get you this tonight, you should expect it that night. And if I tell you that I'm going to live stream at a certain time, you could probably bank on it. Like I may miss, something might happen, God forbid, that wouldn't allow me to stream. But if I put it on Twitter that I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. Number 3, they manage conflict well. Conflict is unavoidable when human beings are involved, and people with integrity understand that cutting through conflict by listening and taking in various perspectives is a much faster solution to resolving an issue than running away from conflict and avoiding people. Buffett understands that the competitive advantage that comes from having integrity steers people into making good choices. This is good for your business decisions, and it protects your reputation. And it starts with whom you hire. Now, I agree with that. Unfortunately, like myself, I am not good with conflict. And I do agree that it's unavoidable when people are involved. I do also understand that you do need to listen and you do need to understand various perspectives. But if you have a quote unquote cancer in your organization, if you have a narcissist in your organization, they will use every inch that you've given them to attack you. These are not good people. And it's kind of hard sometimes to tell who the narcissist is. We throw the word around all the time. But really, what does it mean? So anyway, integrity, I think, is important. But understand that if you are using your integrity, it is a value that you desire. It's a value that you respect, and it's a value that you understand. But you could be working with people that don't have those same beliefs, that don't have what they think of as integrity is completely different than what you think of as integrity. And that's why it's so dangerous. That's why it's so dangerous. When you're operating on a plane and you think that everyone else is operating on that same plane, you must be mistaken, because we're all people and we're all different. We all have different ideas. We all have different motivations. And some people, the word integrity means something to them that is completely different than what it means to you. So you say, John, what would you do? What would you look to hire in an organization? How would you look to handle this type of thing? Well, I'll be honest with you. I have struggled with this. I don't want anyone to steal from me. Okay. That's not integrity per se. That's just someone that's, not stealing from you. That's an action. I've thought about the best person to hire. I have so many different things going on. I was thinking perhaps a creative might be the best person to hire. Then I was thinking about perhaps a taskmaster, a type of person that I need to do all these things, or at least to help me do all these things. And I don't have an answer. Integrity, it comes across weird in interviews. I'm a big fan of interviewing more than once. Um, that's for sure. Even in today's world, I want to feel a comfort level with the person. Now, I'm also, having hired people before, I will say that if there's a choice between hiring a bad hire or hiring no one at all, I'm better off not hiring anyone at all. I'm not proud of that, but I mean, that's just the way I see things. And so, what do you think? Is integrity important? I mean, I think it's important, but I mean, is it the number one thing that you want to use to bring in people? Let me know in the comment section. Let me know in the chat, and it'd be interesting. Now, let's go on to our next article. I mean, we have all articles. This is what I do. This is the question that we talked about earlier that we prefaced it with, and that is, what should you do if a valuable employee decides to quit? It says, during the Great Resignation, this concern is especially important. And I've told you, like, if I had a valuable employee and they decided to quit, I would be hurt. I would be personally hurt. Because let me just try to put you into my vision. My vision is that someone, like, I can't offer you the sun and the stars and the moon. Okay. I'm a small real estate brokerage in South St. Louis, Missouri. Okay. I'm not even one of the best brokerages in my area, like in terms of volume, in terms of transactions. Like I'm just pretty average. Okay. So if you come work for me, you have to kind of know that in advance. And so then you have to look at your position with my organization as one in which you learn a lot of things, you excel at them, okay? And then you use everything that you've learned to go find yourself a job where it is big time, where you do have success on a grand scale. And my only positive situation there is that you actually moved on and you did better for yourself. And I was maybe a small part of that you used what I and the rest of our employees taught you to help you grow and help you get the career and the job and the life that you want. This is what I ultimately want. Now, that puts forth two problems. One, you're leaving. That makes me sad. And two, I have to replace you. That also makes me sad. So that's how I look at it. Now, one of the downsides would be this. What if I hired you and you couldn't cut it in our organization at all? You weren't wanting to learn. You wanted to be a robot, no creativity, and you didn't work out. Now it's a double whammy. I've spent time training you, and I've proven that I'm a failure because I picked the wrong person for the position. Not good. Not good. So let's kind of go through this. It says, I've been in business for over 20 years, and I have employed more than 30,000 people. I highly doubt that this person has hired 30,000 people. I've had my fair share of employees who decide to quit. After these experiences, I have some suggestions on what to do when an employee is extremely valuable to the team decides to quit, and I have boiled them down to 3 general suggestions. So let's just look over his general suggestions. Hold them tight. I often hear that if a person decides to quit their job, they will do it sooner or later, no matter what you do. You can't stop it, and you probably shouldn't. After all, there's no irrepressible people. I strongly disagree with this notion. Quitting is always stressful. You can't know what the future will hold. Of their own free will, a person, if everything is in order, usually does not want new troubles. They want to stay in their comfort zone if you've created one for them. Therefore, most likely, there are grave reasons that push them to come to this decision. It's always worthwhile. Maybe you will find something to improve within your company and try to help. Experience tells us that there are practically no unsolvable situations. Sometimes employees quit for the weirdest and easiest to solve reasons ever. I've had a software engineer that didn't like the way his manager spoke to him in the chat and just decided not to tell anybody. I've had developers quitting because they got tired years ago and didn't know how to take a break. I've had the head of digital marketing quit because they thought their pay was too high for the quality of job they were doing. Employees can be weird. The only way to know what's going on is to ask them calmly and be mentally prepared to receive any answer. If a person is truly valuable to the business, your pride is secondary. You should try to keep them no matter what. It's rarely only about salary. Often giving them new positions in the company or giving them some fresh tasks is even more important. Then what about the former tasks of this worker? It's still terrible, right? Who will do their job? But think of it like this. If they quit, you will still have to distribute all their former duties. So it is the same thing. But your trusted employee is a keeper of the knowledge, traditions, and culture of your company. They have some authority among their colleagues, and they are open leader. Keeping them is important. Losing them will be like losing a finger or a toe. Your company can continue, but the quality of life will be reduced. We're still going. I just wanted to check on if anyone was in the chat. And no. So here we go. I'm sorry. I got to get to the right page. Continue talking to them. This is number 2. What do people usually regret on their deathbed? Judging by what I heard, it seems like disappointing your boss is somewhere at the bottom of that list. Most people regret not having spent enough time with their family and their friends. But in fact, quitting is a form of death. Of course, thankfully, everyone remains alive and well, but the connection you had is broken. You no longer have this person in your life. They are dead to you. But it is within your power to avoid this. Continue talking to them. People want to feel needed. Even better would be if you start talking to them before they quit. Often the lack of a positive assessment of a person's work by their managers is a core reason for them quitting their job. That's why in some big successful companies such as Adobe and Intel, supervisors are encouraged to spend at least an hour every month with each of their subordinates discussing random topics, preferably not related to work. This way they can better feel the mood and understand the plight of their employees. If the subordinate sees that you are grateful, they'll be happy, and it won't cost anything. Providing people with moral support is hard work, but it is free and it is the most important. If they are fulfilled, they have no reason to quit, even if their salary is not the best. Now, I'm uncomfortable with the notion that I should spend 1 hour per month talking to employees about subjects not related to work. And I'm going to just explain to you why. I want to love all people. At the end of the day, I just want to love all people. And the problem that I have is if I get too close with someone and they say, you know, I was out drinking last night on my motorcycle and I almost got killed, but I didn't. And the police started chasing me, and I managed to take my motorcycle and jump it off of a ravine and onto the other side, and the police couldn't catch me. It was pretty badass. If they told me that, see, I would see that as people making questionable choices. And I would be wondering, what are they doing in my organization? What are they doing? Is someone being held hostage? Are one of our customers being, what's going on? Like this is just odd. So that's one thing. The other thing is I don't know if you realize this, but work encompasses most of my life. I mean, I get up in the morning and I start work, and then I go to bed, and it's because I can't work anymore. I'm tired. Like every day for me is work. And would I like to, think about other things? I do think about other things, but it's not like a controlled hour at work. If there's one thing I've noticed about myself as a manager, it's that I tend to praise too often. And as we saw in the first article at eatery.com today, that worker felt in the beginning that she was doing a wonderful job. She was receiving praise from everyone, and then it stopped happening. And so when you set an expectations of praise and praise and praise, maybe that's not the way to go. And the other thing is what if it's fake? People can see through fake, I think. I don't want to give people praise when it's not. I don't want to be patronizing. Oh, congratulations. You did this task that I've done 1,000 times. Good for you. You know what I'm saying? Managers need to understand that your company has already paid a premium for searching, interviewing, onboarding, and training this specialist. That's absolutely right. Do you know how much time it takes to find an employee and then get through the entire process? If they are still valuable and if their job is still needed, you would be foolish not to fight for them at all. Number 3, wait for their return. Let's imagine that your efforts were not successful. The person leaves. My firm conviction is that no matter what, you need to part on good terms. Make this your complete priority. Do not burn any bridges. Them deciding to quit might not be the end of your joint work. The world is small after all, and the world of quality workers in your field is even smaller. If they are quitting, first and foremost, is it worth getting any feedback you can? It is worth, I'm sorry. What was their favorite thing about working for you? What was their least favorite? What would they want to change? Who would they like to replace? Who would they like to replace them, and why? This person has nothing to lose now, so they are invaluable. They are ready to share their experience and tell you honestly about the situation at the workplace. Don't neglect this information. Now your attention needs to be on those people who stayed with you. Carefully consider how to distribute new responsibilities between the people who are still with you. The load will most certainly likely increase for everybody, at least for a short while. People need to be prepared for that. More than once, I've encountered an opinion that once an employee leaves your company, it is incredibly hard for them to return. They will be too ashamed, and moreover, you should not accept them because they are a traitor in a way. This is complete nonsense. When someone tells you something like that, just remember Steve Jobs, who was fired from his own company with a scandal, but returned triumphantly just a few years later. Now the company's name is synonymous with him, and the company is all the more successful for it. I would argue that they were in a lot of trouble and needed something. If you create a welcoming environment, and if they know they will be accepted, you will be surprised by how many want to come back after just a few months. People left my company, Smart Brain, for other companies, for higher positions and for higher salaries. But the hundreds of those whom I sincerely offered their job back after a few months actually returned, even on the same conditions, on the same salary they had before. I know of a few cases in large IT companies when some employees quit and came back up to several times. If a truly valuable person quits working for you, you must assure them that you will always be happy to see them come back. This will be extremely valuable in the long run, especially since finding new employees that fully fit your business and onboarding them right now is extremely tough. In general, hold on to your talented people. Try to make the life of your workers as carefree as it can. A happy, nurtured person can grow, fully realize themselves, and create additional value for everyone around them. I believe quite a bit in this article. I think this is very much the way we would want to believe that we should work and be in business. I do believe this. Okay. One of the things I saw that was problematic for me is in the second piece of advice, and that is, if you feel like an employee is moving away, like they're leaving you, they may telegraph that by trying to avoid you. It's the same thing in a relationship, like say you're going to break up with someone. Well, if you can get yourself a little bit of distance, it's a little bit easier. If you can make that person the enemy, that's even better. So be prepared for that psychological transition. Some people are going to be uncomfortable. They may be very happy, but they may have to leave, and they may feel that way. And so rather than bring any sort of sadness to your days over time, the best thing that they think of is if they can just shut down and kind of hang their head and head towards the door. I don't know. At 44 years old, I don't know how many more opportunities I'm going to have to bring people on to be a part of my company. But this article is a very good one, and it very much aligns with what I think I see in the workplace. So that's that. Let me get to our main screen. So, what did we learn tonight? I don't know that we really learned anything. We certainly had some wonderful thought experiences with these articles. I'd be interested in anything you had to say. So please, if you see this like a year from now, subscribe. I should still be going. If you want to put I read all the comments on all my channels. I respond to as many as I can. So feel free to post a comment now. Maybe I won't, maybe it'll be a year from now that you're watching this, but I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please subscribe, please be a part of the chat, and let's have that community that I think is necessary. I think is necessary in today's world as we all navigate the odd circumstance that is employment in 2022 and beyond. With that, I'm going to head on out. Thank you for watching. I will see you tomorrow.